Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street, presented by Plaza Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Here is Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel, Gary Vickery, and I'm your host, Lisa Melmed. Hello, Jonathan. How's it going?
Great to be with you, Lisa.
Always a pleasure. Construction's happening. Things are moving and shaking.
Yeah, we were debating if we should be moving this into a studio, and I just can't get past doing it in Oscars. I just love doing it in Oscars. This podcast, yeah. Just love doing it in here.
I have to say a prayer for my favorite booth that has gone away, sacrificed for the greater good.
Took it out back and sacrificed it. And a nice entrance out to the patio will shortly be with us, so... Yes, your booth is gone. But we're not going to do it outside of this room. It is what it is. If you don't like it, tough. We like doing it here in Oscars.
Who doesn't like it?
No, I don't think anyone doesn't like it. I just think people would like it more with video, but I just don't want to take it out of Oscars.
Right. Yes. So March Madness is in full swing.
Best time of year.
Who are you rooting for?
No idea. No idea, but I do love March Madness. I'm rooting for March Madness.
Yeah.
It's just the best time of year. The weather turns. Everyone's in Vegas. Everything's busy. Great energy. Mm-hmm. All day you come in and people are just having fun from literally for 6 days straight. It's the best time of year.
I agree.
That's who I'm rooting for that.
Awesome. Well, we had another wonderful episode, another wonderful Oscars dinner series with Oscar Goodman.
Oscar was on fire. This was a great crowd.
Great crowd. Lots of VIP guests, including our chairman. Yes,
exactly. And let's hear what he had to say. Right? We're not gonna break it down today.
No, this is straight from the man himself.
Here is the man, the myth, Oscar Goodman.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's great being here tonight. I can't tell you how happy I am that Johnny asked me to participate in the dinner series because it's opened up a whole new vista for me. When I prepare, and I do prepare, believe it or not, for these remarks, it's like a flashback as to my law practice at this point in time and all the different cases that I had and matters that I took care of. And it gives me a feeling that I have accomplished a lot of amazing things, not all wins, but certainly attacking the government when the government was doing something wrong and teaching them how to do their job right. And basically, that is what I'm most proud of. I am, at a penalty of perjury, I promised a wonderful friend of the family, Shelley Berkeley, to introduce her. She is a former congresswoman, very, very supportive of Las Vegas and the causes that each one of us in the room truly believe in. She was tireless. I never saw anybody like her. She flew back and forth from Washington when she was in office, and now she's chosen to follow my wife as the mayor of Las Vegas, and she came here tonight on the promise that she will pay me for making this announcement. Shelley, would you stand up, please? And now we're going to do something a little different because I've been advised that the owner of the hotel, Pollo Zabadowicz, has a birthday coming up this week. Wait, not the only birthday. This is the incredible one. Jonathan Jossel, who is the fellow who runs the day-to-day operations here and is the youngest gaming licensee ever in the state of Nevada. His oldest boy, Leib Ephraim, they call him Noah for reasons which I have never understood. Leib Ephraim is going to be 7 years old. I was at his bris at the house. I cannot believe 7 years go so quickly. And one of my favorite people whose bris I did not attend, whose birthday is this week, is my daughter, Kara. Now, I'm trying to get you in the mood. When I use the word bris, there's a reason for it. This is not a joke. Everything I say has a reason. And a bris, of course, is the ceremony that Jewish babies go through, I think painfully, but apparently they say that they don't feel any pain. I don't believe those who say that. Ouch is right. And I was there when Jonathan and myself really got to know each other in the beginning. And I want to know, anybody else's birthday this week? Who's mine? Okay, what's your name? Don't choke to death. Catherine? And where are you from, Catherine? People live there? All right, now you're talking. Anybody else? Okay. Where you? What's your name? Yeah, you raised your stupid hand. What? Never heard of it. Okay. Yes. Okay. Your birthday this week? Monday. That's not this week. That's next week. All right. Well, let's sing happy birthday then to everybody whose birthday it is. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to everybody. Happy birthday to you. Okay. Now that I got that out of the way, I wanted to tell you and this is the only thing I ask is if you want to talk and you want to talk while I'm talking, leave your name, leave your address, because I'll have you whacked. I have been through this too many times. I'm not going to ruin it for other people, but I will send. I have a couple of former clients who are in their 90s, okay? And some of them have promised me that they would do whatever I ask them to do. And I'm going to get some of the people who are speaking while I'm speaking and just leave a place where they could reach you, and you'll end up in Lake Mead in a barrel with a .22 in the back of your head. And I won't feel bad about it for you. All right, now, wait. I actually prepared this, and I only have a limited amount of time. I was trying to think. Get his name, please. I was working on what I wanted to do, because this is for some reason, I felt this time of year is a special time of year, and we've been doing so well here, and everybody comes up and they say they're having a good time. I was trying to think of a topic that was meaningful and was pertinent and relevant to what's happening today. And there's so many things that I did, and I'm not saying this for self-adulation, but I was considering I was involved in the first wiretap case in the United States, the first racketeer influence corrupt organization case, the RICO case in the United States, represented alleged mobsters in various parts of the country. I had one case after another, represented a fellow who was charged with assassinating a federal judge during the past century. So one after another, and they all were interesting stories, and I couldn't make up my mind what I wanted to do, but what we're going to do at the end of this evening, when we send out the announcement as to the next dinner series speech, we're going to put down several categories of these kind of speeches and allow you, when you call up and you make your reservation for the next one, to advise the Plaza as to which story you'd like to hear, and that way I'll be able to hone in on what is of importance to you and what would be your pleasure in order to hear my comments. But many of the stories that I've told are half stories. You remember that I told the story about the judge when we had the Rotten Tomato Judges series of the judge up in Carson City who was denying every motion that I had and overruling every motion that I had, and he wasn't listening to me at all. And the only way that we were able to overcome that, Carolyn had the Meadows School here, and she was having a party at the Meadows School, and I called her up and I said, "Sweetheart, Tommy Lasorda is your guest speaker. Can you ask Tommy to provide you with 2 baseballs and send them up to me so I could give them to the judge?" Now, there's a reason I asked for 2, as I told you before, because you're not allowed to have ex parte communications. That means without the opponent being in the room with you. And there was a district attorney up there, Noel Waters, and he was a stickler. He was a rotten lawyer, but he was a stickler for that kind of nonsense. And I knew that he would make a big fuss of it. But Carolyn got the baseballs, got them up to me, and I went in to see the judge. And I can't see you. I said, why can't you see me? He says, I'm not allowed to see you without Mr. Walters. I said, call him in. And then I'll do what I came here to do. So he says, are you going to waste our time, Mr. Goodman? Every judge I appeared in front of said, Mr. Goodman, why are you wasting our time? I didn't think I was wasting our time. My clients didn't think I was wasting our time. But the judges always felt, the jury's waiting. You're wasting our time. So I said, just have Mr. Walters come in here. We'll take care of it. And he came in, and I said, I have a gift for you, Judge. And the district attorney, I thought he was going to call a grand jury to indict me for trying to bribe the judge. Basically, I was trying to influence the judge, and I knew that I would be unable to influence him unless I took care of Mr. Walters as well. So I had the baseball autographed by Tommy Lasorda, the great manager, to Judge Archie Blake, the judge who was trying the case up there. And the other baseball was to District Attorney Noel Walters, the best prosecutor who ever lived. Well, these two guys grabbed those baseballs as though they were pieces of gold, and from that point on, I had a break. They didn't deny everything that I was trying to do. So I told you that much, but I really didn't tell you what the case was about. And what I was trying to do today is to talk about my most difficult cases. A lot of people would say, well, the Chagrin case is the most difficult because you're representing somebody charged with killing the federal judge, or back in Philadelphia, the Scarfo case on the murder there. Just a case after Harry Claiborne, the great lawyer from Las Vegas who underwent a very difficult trial up in the north and had Joe Conforti, the owner of the Mustang Ranch, testify against him, and then we appeared in front of the U.S. Senate. So I had all these cases that were well known, and people were following them, and I was going down my cases, and it's not that hard for me to remember because each case was very important to me. The clients were very important to me, and people would say, well, how can you represent this guy? Well, who's going to represent him if I'm not going to represent him? Because if the government could do to him what they were trying to do, and there wasn't somebody in the government's way, then by representing these clients, I was able to make a statement that they're not going to get away with illegal misconduct, prosecutorial misconduct, the violation of the Constitution, any of these causes, as long as I'm the attorney in the case. So I went down the various cases. I thought about my first case involving an African-American gentleman who was living on the west side, and he was charged with murdering somebody who was going to be testifying against him in the county courthouse here. And it's the first time in 25 years from the time of the trial that the jury came back with a death penalty. And that case was important to me, and while I'll never forget it, is when the jury went out, Carolyn said, come on home, try to rest a little bit before the verdict comes in. And I got a phone call when I came home, and they said they had a verdict, so I said, sweetheart, would you like to go down? And she said, sure, I'll go down with you. And I went back to the jail, and the client was there, and I said, I hope everything works out, Brown. His name was Lewis Brown Crockett. And he says, don't worry about it. We'll do fine. And we went out into the courtroom, and you look for certain signs. You usually can tell what's going to happen with a verdict when you look at a juror's face. And there was one woman there. I still remember, this is in 1967. 1967, I remember Mrs. Homer Black. I don't know whether she still is alive, whether she's in town here. But every morning when I would come into court, she would wave at me and say, good morning, Mr. Goodman. And I would go like that. Well, she was the first one coming out, and there was a tear coming down her cheek. So I don't wish that on anybody, because I knew that it was going to be bad news. And the jury came back, and they had a guilty verdict. And the judge was Tom O'Donnell, a very devout Catholic fella, good guy. And in those days, it wasn't a bifurcated trial on guilt or innocence and then penalty. It was just one trial, including penalty as well as the guilt or innocence phase. And he did not want to impose the death penalty, which the jury had recommended. And I knew that, but I didn't know what I could do about it. And I said, all right, sweetheart, I said, I'll meet you at the house. And I went in and I saw the client who was in the jail. And Carolyn heard the worst sobs in the world. You could probably hear them today, all those years going by. That's how bad it was. And I came out and she said, boy, your client is taking it hard. I said, sweetheart, that wasn't my client, that was me. And that's the way I felt about it. I was heartbroken about it. And I said, go home, I'm going to go to the law library, because I knew I had to find a way, if there was one, where the judge who did not want to impose the death penalty would act as the 13th juror. And I stayed in the library all night long. Next morning, somebody comes in. I don't know, those who have been around here a long time may remember Jerry Ralia. Jerry was a reporter for the Review Journal and a decent chap. And he said, how's your client taking it? I says, he's taking it as well as anybody can under the circumstances. He's gutty. He really has a lot of guts. The next day, I picked up the newspaper, and the headline is, defense lawyer says client guilty. Somebody had misread the reporter's notes, and I was really sick then, and I went down to the jail, and I said, Brown, I said, I didn't say that. He says, I know you didn't say it, but I'm glad you're here. And I said, why is that? He says, I want you to talk to somebody. I said, who's that? The fellow who was seen carrying the gun from the Carry Arms apartment where the shooting took place. He'd like to see you. I said, well, I'm not going to see him by myself. And this was on a Saturday morning. I called a court stenographer to come and meet me up there so I could take a statement from the fellow. And basically, and that's time for another story, I was able to walk the man out, a free man, as time went on. And that should be the end of the story, but it's not. And we don't ask for too much in life, but this one I did not like. Years later, when I was in my law office, and Brown came in, Lewis Crockett, and he was acting funny. He says, can you lend me some money? I said, what do you need the money for? He says, I have a business venture and I need the money. Can you give it to me? I said, Brown, you're not leveling with me here. What's the problem? And I patted him down. And of course he was wired. And I said, and I'm not going to use the expletive because I don't do that around nice women. But I kicked him out of the office, and that's the way he ended up. And that you don't do what I did and what good criminal lawyers do for anything other than the fact that you think you're doing something to help other people. And when they disappoint you that way, it's a horrible feeling. So that was a case that I was really thinking about. And another one I was thinking about was Manny Baker, who had 3 cops lie about him, and I was able to prove that. A heroin dealer. How can you represent a heroin dealer? Well, if somebody doesn't represent him, then they wouldn't be able to catch the cops at what I caught them at. That will be the subject of another series, because that's a wonderful story to let you know that when people who are charged criminally walk out of the courtroom, it's not on a technicality. It's on something like the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution, and that's no technicality. That's the basis of the Bill of Rights upon which this country was founded. But one case stood out in my mind, and that was the case involving this oral surgeon up in Carson City. And he was charged with sexually molesting, and I've been told by people in the room here who said you shouldn't talk about that. I talk about whatever I want to talk about. This is my room. This is my room, and if they don't like it, they don't have to come and don't have to listen to it. But we have to be realistic. I'm on a plane coming back from Reno to Las Vegas, and a fellow sits next to me by the name of Ed Becker. Ed Becker was an investigative reporter who was working on behalf of the Committee about Truth in Media. They didn't have it then, they don't have it now, but nevertheless, that's what he did. And he says, Oscar, there's a fellow who is really getting maligned. He's a doctor, he's an oral surgeon up in Carson City, and the paper is destroying him. I mean, he's losing everything as a result of it, and lawyers are taking money left and right and telling him he should plead guilty. You got to talk to this guy. I said, you know, I've had all these cases. Ed, his name was Ed Becker. I said, Ed, and I just need a little bit of a break because I come off one case into another, and this one wasn't planned. He says, please do me a favor and talk to him. So I talked to the doctor, the oral surgeon, and he told me that the charge against me was sexually violating 7 patients who were under the influence of Brevitol, Demerol, and Valium. And it was called, in the vernacular, an anesthetic cocktail. There's some guys here who are smiling, actually. I think they would rather have it than the girls who had it during their procedures there. And the girls had what they called rides, people who were sitting in the waiting room waiting to take them home because they were woozy when they came out of the doctor's office, and they made what, I don't know what the state rule is, but the federal rule is prior consistent statements to these people, 404B statements for those who are lawyers, and they each said, the doctor did this to me, he took my bra off, he fondled my breast, he took my, I promised my wife I would use the word peeper. He put his hand on my peeper. It's a good word as any. He stuck his peeper in my mouth, and you know, it's look, that's life. Every man. I'm not sure anymore. I may have to apologize for this one. Everyone except the transy, who was a man, had a peeper, but it doesn't matter. If you have one, I love you. If you don't have one, I feel sorry for you. That's just the way that it works. So they say that he placed the peeper, his peeper in my mouth, or he was rubbing his peeper, and it was brutal. And then one of his employees, he had 2 employees testify. One I knew because I had represented her father, who was a state highwayman, it was a horrible story. He received a package at his home for his birthday. And he opened up the package, and the package had been sent by a disgruntled driver that he gave a ticket to, and it blew the house apart. And in the process of blowing the house apart, it blew his stomach apart and took out his eye. And I thought she would be friendly towards me. Well, she was not mean to me, but she wanted to destroy my client, and said that the doctor, he said at 5 o'clock to leave the patient in the chair, turn down the lights, close the drapes, turn up the music, lock the door, and then send us home. And I said, well, this seems like a very difficult case. But there was something about the guy, there's something that I really felt that he didn't do it. Sometimes you have that sixth sense, and he said, please represent me. And I said, all right, we'll take a shot at it. And we went to trial, and the state put on a witness who said that the anesthetic cocktail never created a hallucinatory feeling which would make the patient feel that they were being sexually molested. He said that's a bunch of hooey, and even though there were articles written one way or the other about the effect, I think Kara told me yesterday of Brevitol in particular, it raises the memory, she said, and they were trying to prove that he did in fact give these women that kind of treatment, and then took advantage of them in a sexual manner. And it was very tough. The jury hated him. The judge wanted to send him away for 1,500 years. The media was unbelievable to the guy. They brought in a doctor from Las Vegas. Pardon me, I need a drink. Everybody should have a drink. The doctor that the state brought forward was a very well-respected dentist here. His name was Dr. Hansen. He was the president of the dental board. He was president of the National Dental Board. Movie star handsome, articulate as could be, and he gets on the witness stand as a state's witness, and he said, if Goodman is trying to shove this hooey down your throat, well, that was a very bad analogy. If Goodman is trying to have you convinced that it doesn't work that way, I've had 4,000 patients and never had a reaction like that. I cross-examine him the best that I can and go over the literature with him, and then the judge calls a weekend timeout, and I come back to Vegas, and there's a message waiting at my home. It's from Dr. Daniel Orr. I don't know whether anybody knows Dan Orr. He practices. He has a medical degree, a law degree, a master's degree, and he says, I have to see you. And he works right around the corner. He works at the building right next to UMC, and he says, this guy Hansen, he's way off base. So this definitely has a hallucinatory effect of sexual nature on patients when they have this cocktail. I said, well, can you help me? He said, I'll testify for you. I said, I really need that. And he said, I'll do one better for you. I'm going to bring you an exhibit. He says, make sure of one thing, though, before you let the state's doctor off the stand, make sure the judge orders him to remain in the corridor so you'll be able to call him back. So I went in early in the morning, and I said, Judge, you have to have the doctor wait until I'm through my examination of Dr. Orr and another witness. And the judge says, all right, but you're dealing with a very prestigious doctor here, and he hurt you terribly in his examination, and I don't know why you would ever want him back in the courtroom. And I said, that's my business. And he calls the case to order, and Orr gets on the stand. He says there's no question, in his experience, with all of his background, it does have a hallucinatory effect as far as sexual matters are concerned. And he said, I even have had patients myself who said to me that they experienced it with various dentists. So I said, could you find me one? He said, I brought one with me. So I said, what's her name? And I called her to the stand, and it was obese, unattractive, and she really was ugly. And I said, did this really happen to you? She said, yes. She said, a dentist took advantage of me. I said, well, you just sit up there, young lady, and I have somebody I want to show you. And I called the dentist, who was in the hallway, the state's witness, into the courtroom. Wait! That's the guy who raped me. She accused him of raping her in the desert. Well, she was, after she had had this anesthetic cocktail. And if you would ever want to believe a witness, it was her. And it took short shrift for the jury to come back with a not guilty. So it's never too late to learn something. I learn something every day. I'm a happy fella, but that's not the end of the story. I'm saying to myself, how can I win this case? Here are 7 women who never met each other in their life, who never talked to each other in their life. How am I able to show that there was some type of collusion here to make up the same kind of story? The only difference was the breast or the peeper. And that was the only distinction. So I'm in the hotel room, and I'm tossing and I'm turning, and I'm tossing and I'm turning. And folks, I know I joke about my drinking gin. The truth of the matter, I've been drinking gin for a long time. I drink so much gin. Are there folks from Southern Wine and Spirits here? Okay. Who drinks more Bombay Sapphire in the world than I do? Okay. Nobody. You want to know something? The reason for it, not only do I love the taste of it and the effect of it, but my brain cells are bigger than anybody's in the world because of the Bombay Sapphire. And you could count on that. And it dawned on me how the story came out the same. And I'm sure you all know. The detective who was investigating it interviewed all 7 of the witnesses and told them what had happened to each other, and they all transferred that information into their own testimony, and that's the reason that they got her, through one detective. Now, if I wasn't as smart as I was, and that was in those days, this client would have gotten 1,500 years. But because I was smart and because I was able to figure this out of nowhere, he walked out of the courtroom a free man. So that's the reason that it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have defense lawyers in the community. So that's it, folks. I appreciate your courtesy. I appreciate the fact that you were such a good audience and having a good time. And next time we'll have another good story for you, and we'll try to show that we try to keep the government honest. Harder today maybe than back then, and but we won't stop. So thank you once again.
And if you were dozing off, that scream definitely woke you back up. So that's good. Everyone's awake. And I believe Poyu was going to say a few words, but I did forget one important message before when I was saying my introductions, and that is I do want to welcome Sue Ascanio, our new general manager, to the team. Welcome to the team, Sue. Sue joins us. There she is. Welcome to downtown Las Vegas and the place to be in downtown Las Vegas. It's great to have you as part of the team down here. Poyu, would you like to say a few words? Because then we're going to open it up to the floor for questions. So if you have any question of Oscar, that is your opportunity to ask her. But first, Poyu would like to say a few words.
Just to say 2 minutes, lovely that you are here, great that you are here, amazing, your series, your talking series, your dinners are amazing. We are very fortunate to work with Carolyn and Oscar. And I met him when I came to town. It was a November dark evening that I went to the mayor office. He met me. He had a phone. He was at his big seat and a big desk. I was new in town. I come to the mayor. I tie, very nice suit, sits me down. We talk, and he says, "You bought the plaza." So I said, "Yeah." So he said, "I'm proud. I'm glad." So he said, "But you have to behave." So I said, "Why do I have to behave?" So he said, "If you don't behave, you won't have the plaza." So I said, "What do you mean?" So he says, "Do you see this telephone on my desk?" Cellular phones weren't so usual then. He says, "Do you see this phone on on my desk?" So I said, "Yeah." "What does it have to do with the plaza?" So he says, "One telephone call of mine, you won't have the plaza. It will be rubble." But we really gelled and connected in no time. And we're very lucky with Jonathan and with my family that we have you as partners in this amazing city. And why it's amazing, it's because you were mayor, you are mayor. As in business, it's all about people. And Las Vegas is what it is because Las Vegas has been fortunate to have the Goodmans for so long. And I wish you well.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you for you.
What Poyu is trying to say is that Oscar threatened him with arson when he bought the plaza if he didn't do it. That's the translation of the story. So does anyone have a question for Oscar? We got one right here, please. The question is, this gentleman, what was your name? Jason. Jason's uncle is Izzy Marion.
Connie was his wife. Yes, I have a story. Izzy Marion was the dumbest client I ever represented. I hope it doesn't run in the genes, but and he was a good friend of mine too. And Izzy was a heck of a guy. I mean, he was a wonderful cook. As a matter of fact, when I was representing him, we would come back from New York during the trial, and he would cook. What is it called? Baklava. Baklava? No, bacala. The cod. Yeah, the who asked you? The bacala, and it was wonderful. But Izzy was picked up in a wiretap and it was talking about having a gun shipped from New York to Las Vegas. In the old days, in order to convict somebody of perjury, you had to have somebody lying under oath. In the new days, if two people, it didn't have to be under oath, told inconsistent stories to a government official, that constituted a different form of perjury. So Izzy calls me and he says he's been subpoenaed in front of the grand jury in New York, and they wanted him to testify. I said, "You want me to go back with you?" He says, "No, I'll take the fifth. Don't worry about it." Well, Izzy went in there, and the only person in the world who knew why Izzy wanted to do this was Izzy. Izzy could have said, "I wanted it for protection. I wanted to put it in a drawer. I wanted to give it to a girlfriend. I wanted to give it to Connie Francis." He's the only guy, and they would never be able to do anything to him. But no, Izzy had to tell 15 different stories. And yes, and they indicted Izzy, and we went back to trial, and Izzy had a judge, boy, my memory isn't bad, a Judge Owens, and he was a great athlete. Pardon me? Yeah, a big boxing fan. And I subpoenaed Izzy's friend, Joe Lewis, to be a character witness for Izzy. And Joe came back with Martha. Martha was his wife, who was a judge from Detroit, I believe. And I was going over the testimony of Joe Lewis. And I said, "Please state your name." And that's not the hardest question to answer. And Joe said, "Joe Lobaro." I said, no, say it clearly, Joe Lobaro. I said, I'm going to call your wife instead as a character witness. And we walk into court, and the judge sees, "Mr. Goodman, come up here. Is that who I think it is?" I said, "Yes, Your Honor, that's Joe Lewis." He said, "You know, I heard what that prosecutor said. He said that he was going to do an Indian war dance on your client's grave. And he said that in front of Izzy's daughter. And if you get me an autograph, your client's getting probation." So I got him an autograph of Joe Lewis, and Izzy never spent a day in the can.
That's pretty good. We have another question. Justin, Mr. Findlay. The question is, who is a better mayor? I mean, I can answer it if you want, but it's who's the better mayor, Oscar or Carolyn?
Are you married? Okay, do you like to have dinner? Does your wife cook for you? Yeah, it'll come to a screeching halt, buddy, if I answer that question.
Anyone else have a question? Colleen, no questions? Yes, we got a question. The question is, everyone loves the book John L. Smith of Rats and Men, but if there's a piece of it that you most disagree with, what would it be?
Since I didn't write it, I didn't read it. Wait a second. There is a part. I was getting along very well until John said I wasn't the handsomest lawyer in Nevada, and then I stopped reading it. Forget about this guy. No, look, we're the greatest city in the world. It's the greatest city. We have everything in the world that anybody would ever want to live in a city. We have great culture now with the Smith Center Performing Arts, with the Fifth Street Elementary School, with the great medicine. We have a new friend, Apoyos, who's here, the doctor who has moved here, and he's going to be adding to our medical excellence. In the old days, if you were sick and people said, "Where are you going?" they say, "To the airport." Well, now we could say we have some of the finest doctors in the world, one of whom is my oldest son. He's works at comprehensive cancer, and when people go down to Stanford or to UCLA, they said, "What are you doing here? Go back to Vegas. Oscar Goodman Jr. will be able to take care of us, your client, or take care of you as well as we can, if not better." And we have sports. I attribute that to But it's not such a big deal because the truth of the matter is, I didn't get along with the NFL because the NFL said bad things about Las Vegas, and I said bad things about the NFL. I called it the most dysfunctional league in the history of the world because all of its players were bums. And we'll get the NBA here someday because Carolyn's very friendly with Adam Silver. But the guy who has to be the dumbest guy in the world, and I'm going to say this, I hope it's printed in the paper, and I hope he comes after me because I'll show him why he's so dumb. The perfect spot, and it's not that it's a good ball club, forget about it. The perfect spot to bring the Oakland A's to is Cashman Field. They've got 2 highways running right down there. The city's ready to give them the land. They don't have to go through all the crap that the county's going to make them do. And we could have a ballpark here overnight, but they have to be out on the strip, and that stinks. I hope he calls me and calls me on this because I have a couple clients who are 100 years old who will take care of them.
The question is, who is the most notorious, scariest client you ever had?
Well, there are 2 different things. I mean, there are notorious clients, of course, depending on the particular time and place. Tony Spilaccio was notorious. Jimmy Shagru was notorious. They were all nice to me.
Okay, I think there was one last question in the back. Yes, go ahead. Favorite Frank Rosenthal story?
Here I go again. Got to go to the Harry Reid Airport. I have to go to that meeting with the gaming control people and the gaming commission. And all my client wanted was a fair hearing, and Harry Reid wouldn't give it to him, even though he promised he would give it to him. And then they named an airport after this guy. Shame on them. And shame on this guy, Klubeck, who said he was going to raise the money for it, and it wouldn't cost any of us taxpayer dollars. I think they've raised $2 million towards whatever amazing figure there was to build it. Shame on that for approving that name. It should be Las Vegas International Airport.
We'll be back again soon, but in the meantime, please rate, review, and subscribe. Tell your friends about On the Corner of Main Street, and of course, follow us on social. On Twitter and Instagram, it's @PlazaPod, and on Facebook, find us at Plaza Podcast. Or go right to the top and tweet Jonathan @JonathanJossel. We'll see you next time from right here on the corner of Main Street.